In today's episode of Correcting Your Work, I'm going to show you how I'm going to correct this B2 first review into this B2 first review. Let's get to it. So here we have our review. It's about Salon. I hope it's pronounced like that, Salon. It's a place in Catalonia in the northern part of Spain. And I think it's an interesting review. Now, if you remember my how to write a review, you know that a basic review consists of an introduction, a description of the thing that you're reviewing, your opinion, and finally a conclusion. And we can see somewhat this in this review as well. We have something like an introduction here. Then we also get some descriptions about what it is and what we can find there. And there are some good things and something that wasn't perfect. So this is quite an interesting review, and as I was reading this review, I really became interested in Salon and definitely want to visit it at some point. Now, I've already done some of the basics, which means I added some commas here and there and I changed some typos. I will put the original file in the description as well as the final file that I'm making here. Now, as you can see, this file does not contain these three parts very clearly. We do have lots of paragraphs, but I don't think that all these paragraphs are necessary here. So let's make that change first. So I'm first going to find out where the introduction ends. And I think that that's about here. So this paragraph is the first part of the description. So I'm first going to change that here. So I'm going to make this into one long introduction. Then I'm going to make this my description. And I think this will be the first paragraph, the first argument. And this can be a paragraph as well. And then we get the not everything was perfect paragraph, which is this part here. And then this is our conclusion, which I think is very good. So now we have a different structure, and I think this structure fits quite well. Let's look at some of the changes we'll make, and we'll start with our introduction. Now, this is already quite a good introduction. You know, I like the beginning of "Have you ever stopped in a place and fell in love with it?" That's very nice. So I wouldn't make that many changes. Now, what we could do is change the vocabulary a bit to increase the level. Even though it's B2 first, we do want to show that we can play with the language. So what I'm going to change is this part. So, have you ever stopped in a place for the first time and you felt such an amazing feeling that you fell in love with it? Now, you can capture this complete feeling thing with a word like awe. So, I'm going to change that and I'm going to turn it into this. And felt such a sense of awe that you fell in love with it. And I'm going to add the word immediately, because I really want to capture the idea of the first time when you've entered that place, when you entered Salon, you fell in love with it. So that's why I'm adding immediately. Then we're going to edit the sentence structure a little bit. So what we're going to do is I'm going to take this part, which is, well, that happened to me when I got to Salon, and I'm going to remove the full stop and turn it into a comma. Its awesome landscape and its relaxing atmosphere made it an unforgettable and astonishing space. Now, the word space here doesn't really fit, because space usually refers to something that's empty. So in this sentence, when I read the word space, I might think that it's an empty landscape or it's an empty place where people are building something. So I'm going to change it a bit and turn it into this. And its relaxing atmosphere. We're going to remove space. But I want to keep the word unforgettable. And then we get it, which in this case refers to Salon, which can be unforgettable and astonishing. But I'm going to change it into stay. So I'm going to make this into made my stay unforgettable. Now, we need to remove astonishing. Even though I like the word and it's very nice, it doesn't fit the context anymore. So I need to remove it. So we get, its awesome landscape and its relaxing atmosphere made my stay unforgettable. Now then I want to change one more thing, and then we have the perfect introduction. I'm going to change the word awesome. Now I'm not saying that awesome is incorrect, but it's a word people use quite often, and it appears very often in writing. And I think if you want to distinguish yourself in this B2 review, you want to use a different word. You want to increase your vocabulary. So I'm going to change awesome into extraordinary. So now we have a very good introduction of this review. So now we need to look at the description. And I expect a description of Salon. Now there is something with the tense here. We're describing something, and usually you would describe something in present tense. So we use present simple to describe something when we're giving facts. And that's the first thing I'm going to change in this description. So I'm changing it from was a medieval village to is a medieval village. Now, when I was reading this description for the first time, I interpreted it as the people worked with snow during medieval times. But I'm going to change it in such a way that they still work with snow. Salon is a medieval village where people who live there, so I'm going to change this into inhabitants. So, where inhabitants, or the inhabitants, work with snow. Now I've added the word mainly to really put emphasis on the fact that snow is their source of income. Then I also want to change that's the way in wintertime, and I don't really know what this author wants to say here, but I interpret it as putting emphasis on the fact that it's always crowded in the winter. So I'm going to change this into and also link it to the previous sentence by saying something like, that's because the place is very crowded in wintertime. And then we need to make a link to the summer. And I'm going to do that with however. However, many tourists visit Salon in summer too. Now in the final sentence, I want to make sure that the it refers to Salon, so the place we're talking about. So I'm going to change it like this. Even though it is a small village, there are several restaurants, hotels, and other facilities. And I'm going to change there are into Salon has several restaurants, hotels, and other facilities. So now for our first argument or first point that the author wants to make about Salon. So what we're going to do again is change the tense. Because the houses are still there. It's kind of a description. So I want to keep it in present tense. So that's the first thing I'm going to change. The houses are lovely and picturesque. They are perfectly built of stone, and the balconies show a big variety of pretty flowers. Now I want to change the structure of the paragraph a bit, because I want to put the houses at the beginning of this paragraph, because I think that's the most important thing. Even though that the imagining how people would have lived here is also very nice, I don't think that should be our topic sentence. I think the houses are lovely and picturesque should be our topic sentence. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this part of the paragraph and put it at the beginning. So we get something like this. The houses are lovely and picturesque. They are perfectly built of stone, and the balconies show a big variety of pretty flowers. Now, as you maybe remember from my sentence structure video, you know that we like longer sentences. And now we have 3 simple sentences following each other. This is easy to change because I can simply add some commas or maybe add a coordinating conjunction. And that's what we're going to do. So I'm going to change this into the houses are lovely and picturesque and say as they are perfectly built of stone. And then I'm going to add, And the balconies show a big variety of pretty flowers. So now I've changed 3 simple sentences into one compound complex sentence. And that's what we want to do when you're writing at B2 level. Then we get seeing its narrow and stony streets and that part of the sentence of the paragraph, which I really like. So I want to keep that in there. Now, as we want to add some B2 vocabulary as well, I'm going to change this part of the sentence. And I'm going to add the phrasal verb wander around. So I'm going to put it like this. As you wander around, and then I need a clear antecedent. So that was a bit that was lacking here. So I'm going to change it into salons. So we get, as you wander around salons, narrow and stony streets. And then we need to change the tense because everything is present. So we need to change it here as well. You can imagine how people would have lived here a long time ago. Now we've upgraded the vocabulary in this paragraph by adding wander around, but there's one more thing or 2 more things we can do to upgrade the vocabulary. Now here we have the sentence, and the balconies show a big variety of pretty flowers, and we can change this to make it a bit more difficult. Show in this context has a very nice synonym that is at B2 level, and that is the word display. So the balconies display, which is a verb in this case, a big variety of pretty flowers. And because we want to show that we have a lot of different flowers, I'm going to change the adjective big into wide, because that fits better, a wide variety of pretty flowers. This person stayed in Ceylon for quite some time, so she says that she lived in a minuscule but cozy apartment. Okay. The best thing was its terrace, where I hung out for a good while for reading a book, chatting with some of my neighbors, or simply doing nothing while staring at the mountains. Besides, I could practice 2 of my favorite hobbies, like climbing mountains and rock climbing. I've already added the comma here, but I need to change favorite. And as you can see, Word already indicated that this is incorrect. So I need to change it into 2 of my favorite hobbies, like climbing mountains and rock climbing. We're going to keep this in past tense. Even though I talked about present tense in the previous paragraphs, and we need to use present tense in the previous paragraphs, I want to keep this past tense to indicate that this person doesn't live there anymore. So that's why I'm leaving it in past tense. She doesn't live there anymore, I assume, so we can say, okay, I'm not talking about my time while I was living there, where I hung out for a good while for reading a book. Now this is a weird construction, so we need to change this. And I'm going to change this into where I hung out while reading a book, chatting with some of my neighbors. And now Word is set to United States English, American English, but this is correct British spelling. Chatting with some of my neighbors, or simply doing nothing while staring at the mountains, which is of course fine. Besides, I could practice 2 of my favorite hobbies, like climbing mountains and rock climbing. Now in this sentence, I want to add besides what. Now although besides is a nice linking word, we need to change it a bit, so I'm going to add a noun phrase. I'm going to change it into besides enjoying the view, I could practice 2 of my favorite hobbies. I'm going to add I could also practice 2 of my favorite hobbies. We have a comma here, which I added, but I'm going to change it into a colon. And then it becomes I could also practice 2 of my favorite hobbies. And then we can remove like, and it becomes climbing mountains and rock climbing. Now you could say that this paragraph is not particularly well structured, because we start by talking about the apartment and then move on talking about the hobbies thing. Now I'm going to let this slide and basically say, well, let's leave it like this, because I think we've captured the essence of the paragraph and we're still at B2 level. I'm also going to change a few things regarding vocabulary. Cozy is a nice word, but it's used very often. And I want to use a word that's not used very often, so I'm going to change cozy into snug. I'm also going to change minuscule into the word tiny. Minuscule is very small, and I don't think whether minuscule really fits a word like apartment. But tiny does, because we have tiny houses and tiny rooms and tiny apartments, and I think that fits better. So now we move on to our negative point. I like the linking words, honestly and nevertheless. That's very good. It's always nice to see people practice with linking words, but we do need to change a few things to make it grammatically correct. And the first thing we need to change is everything wasn't perfect. Now, this sounds like everything lacked something, which means that it sounds like, you know, you had lots of things and they were near perfect. They were all near perfect. And that's not what she wants to say here, I think. I think she wants to say that not everything was perfect, which is there were a few things that were not perfect. So we're going to change that first. So not everything was perfect. There was no nightlife, which is fine. So if you meant to enjoy a dance in a disco, you would have to drive for 30 minutes. Now I'm going to change this a bit and change a bit of the vocabulary. So check what I'm going to do. So enjoying, which is a gerund, a night out, or clubbing, which is B2 level vocabulary, meant driving 30 minutes to get to the closest city. Now I changed a few things, and the biggest thing I changed is I took away the you, the personal pronoun, to increase formality. Now we're writing a B2 level review, which means that we're not writing C2 level formal stuff. But I think it's good to have some formality in there, and doing this increases it from completely informal to a bit more semi-formal. And I think that's what you want to show when you're writing something at B2 level. So our new sentence is, there was no nightlife, so enjoying a night out or clubbing meant driving 30 minutes to get to the closest city. I like the honestly, but I think it's a bit repetitive since we also have to be honest here. So I'm going to change this and take it out. Now you could say something like, now I didn't need it. That's fine. Now we have nevertheless, which is absolutely fine. It's not incorrect, but nonetheless, which is its brother basically, is considered C1 level. So if we change this into nonetheless, we have a C1 word in there as well, and that's what we want to show them. So we have now, I didn't need it, nonetheless, I missed it. And if you want, you can say that you don't want this now, and you can take it out as well. But I'm going to put it into between brackets, because, you know, it's optional. We can do that if we want. So then we get to our conclusion. Now, accommodation doesn't fit the context, because accommodation is more about the place where you're staying, so like the hotel and the bedroom or whatever, and we're talking about a place in Spain. So that's not correct in this case. And I'm going to change it into, it's totally recommendable if your desire is to spend your holidays in a sensational and peaceful village. But I could also say something like this, because sensational village, sensational and peaceful don't really go together, in my opinion. So I'm going to change it into this and make it breathtakingly peaceful. So, if your desire is to spend your holidays in a breathtakingly peaceful village. And that's basically it. That's how I would upgrade this quite good B2 review. Now, if you want me to review one of your reviews or one of your other writing assignments, let me know in the comments and I will contact you so I can review your work. As always, if you found this video useful, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Leave something in the comment section and let's have some interaction together. Don't forget to subscribe if you want to know when one of my next videos will be out. For now, thank you for watching and I hope to see you in one of my next videos.